So I would go to different club nights, and a bunch of them were like warehouse, kind of like underground parties. So licensing was pretty liberal. And so I would buy a bottle of vodka at an agreed price from the bar. And then I would walk around the club, and I would give them a shot if they downloaded the app then and there and created a profile. So I'd see them do the full journey. And then I'd also get to see like any issues they were having or what didn't make sense or if they were like excited about it.
Welcome to the Tech for Non-Techies podcast. I'm your host, tech entrepreneur, executive coach, and Chicago Booth MBA, Sophia Mateva. My aim here is to help you have a great career in the digital age. In a time when even your coffee shop has an app, you simply have to speak tech. On this podcast, I share core technology concepts, help you relate them to business outcomes, and most importantly, share practical advice on what you can do to become a digital leader today. If you want to have a great career in the digital age, this podcast is for you. Hello, smart people. How are you today? I've got a fun treat for you. You're going to hear how a non-technical founder built a global social network that's used by millions of people. She also got into Y Combinator, and she turned her early mistakes into one of the most successful apps in her category. You're going to hear from Robyn Exton, the founder of Her, a dating app for queer women. And even if this product is not relevant to your life, listen to this interview and pay attention if you are a non-technical innovator who wants to have any kind of modicum of success, because you're going to learn what a non-technical founder did step by step to build her company. You're also going to hear how she got her first users, which is relevant to anybody who wants to launch a product. And you're going to hear how she dealt with her first failure and how that led to her ultimate success. We actually released an excerpt from this conversation 5 years ago, and that episode is one of our most downloaded episodes of all time. And so today I'm releasing the full version for you, and that has only been available to our members so far. And as always, if you get value from this episode, then give some value back. That's how karma works. Please leave this show a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast, because honestly, it really does help me and my team carry on doing great work for you. And now, let's enjoy learning from Robyn.
My name's Robyn. I'm the CEO and founder of Her. Her is a company that helps lesbian, bisexual, and queer people to connect with each other and connect with their community. So we primarily do that with our app. The app currently runs in 113 countries. It runs in 3 languages on iOS and Android, and has about 5.5 million users. And then we also typically run events, so IRL events, as we used to call them, to bring people together in person. And those are currently on hold. And so we're doing a lot of online events and exploring like how to bring people together in groups online for kind of like video chatting and like video events. And so I'm often like, whoa, how the fuck did I get here? This is an unexpected career path. But I think that I didn't ever really particularly ever have a planned career path. Like when I was younger, I was like interested in different fields, and it would be like, oh, I think I want to be a banker because I want to make loads of money, or I want to be a lawyer because that's maybe like a more intellectual version of being a banker with loads of money. Or I want to work in advertising because that's really creative. And that was just like growing up. And I think I went to university, spent 3 years getting drunk and partying, and I don't think for any period of time really thought about my career afterwards. And then I was at a 21st birthday party. I was due to graduate in like 2 weeks. And hadn't thought at all about jobs or what I would do. And was sat next to someone I went to school with who was like, oh, have you got a job? I was like, nah, not thinking about that yet. He was like, oh, I actually work for a recruitment firm and I work with this like advertising post-production company. Do you want to go work with them? And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? Got nothing else to do. So did the interview, got the job with them, graduated on the Wednesday, started with this company on the Monday. And everything just kind of like fell from one thing to the next after that. So while I was working with that group, one of our clients was the branding agency. And so I was working with them a lot. They then hired me. So I moved to the branding agency. One of my clients was a dating business. And so I learned a bunch about the dating industry. And then I think there's like no doubt that like getting that background insight gave me a lot of, and I wasn't consciously aware of it, but it definitely like fueled my understanding of the industry and desire to like think about something for women in it. So yeah, decided to start making her. And so there was like a couple of first years when we actually made a different product called Datch. And Datch was my first attempt or like at addressing the problem and trying to think about what was the best solution for it. And that didn't work. And so learned a lot, learned about the tech industry, learned about like what it was I was actually getting into. And then in 2015, we launched her. And so, yeah, her is now 5 years old. That's right. Yeah, 5 years old. And yeah, moved to the US and now running the company out of here.
Um, that is That's quite a journey, Robyn. So actually, I'm just curious, where is everybody right now? So I'm in London. Robyn is in San Francisco. I'm just, if you just write where you are, that would be super fabulous. Um, but I'm just curious, how did you go from you're in this branding agency and you're working with a dating agency client? I mean, there are lots of people who worked in branding agencies and have had dating agency clients. Not many of them have gone and said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna do this." Like, what happened?
I think there was a bit of context. And again, it's stuff that like you're not fully like conscious of. I wasn't like, yeah, aware of it happening at the time. And like I now look back on it and go, oh, I think that's what was happening. So I think I was like 24, 25. And I think in my job, I was like looking for something else. Like I'd kind of like got to a point where I was quite comfortable doing what I was doing. I'd been asking the MD of the agency to like talk me through balance sheets and like explain to me how this company runs and how does this agency work. And I'd shifted roles slightly to try something different. Like personally in my life, I'd started doing triathlons to like, I think there was like some kind of fix of like challenge and like push that I was looking for. And then when we were working with the agency, with the like dating website company, one of the guys in my agency who was working on the project with me, he was using Grinder, and I think we just thought it was like a really interesting problem. Like at the time, the first inspiration was, this was like before Tinder was out, so it was really like a Match.com world and an eHarmony world. We were like, isn't it phenomenal that every dating site exists to make you believe that being single is bad? And that like you need to change that and you are going to be happier and better if you find another person. And there's no company that like celebrates being single. And Grindr almost did quite a good job of that. It was like empowering and like it felt like this cool secret tool that guys had that they could meet and do whatever the fuck they wanted, and straight people didn't have it. And I was like, that's just like it's amazing and it's like incredible and fascinating to like see it. So me and that friend started and we were in the pub one night and like we'd pitched all these brand concepts to the client. They hadn't accepted any of them. They didn't decide to go ahead with any of the like brand like propositions that we'd suggested. So we were in the pub afterwards and we were chatting and me and my friend were like, you know, young and getting on our heels and being like, they're fucking idiots. We know everything. Like, I can't believe they didn't approve this. And our creative director was like, well, if you're so fucking clever, why don't you two go and make something then? And we were like, fine, we will. And so, yeah. And so like the next day, me and this friend were chatting and we were like, why don't we do it? Why don't we actually like, we just believed in it. I think like truly believed that it was crazy. And so the two of us started working on something and we'd like go for breakfast once a week and we'd make like PowerPoints about stuff. And it was all driven around branding. So at the time I just didn't know anything about tech. So it was about like the positioning, the proposition, like what's the space we want to occupy.
So was the original thing kind of a fun dating app or fun dating community for straight people, or were you already where women
and and I were thinking about an idea. It was just it was for like everyone. So we didn't think about it based on any demographic. It was like, how do we like celebrate singledom and like celebrate the experience of being single? So I think for like 4 or 5 months, we started like developing this idea. We started trying to find different contractors to find out how much would it cost to build this thing, like talking to different agencies. And as time went on, as it got closer, it kind of basically panned out between the two of us that I wanted to do more of this and was really enjoying it and wanted to spend more time on it and like had higher expectations. And my friend was like wanting to do less and less. And eventually he was just like, look, I'm going to actually move to Paris and join a different like agency. And I just want that kind of change in my life. So just that like the path went in different directions. And I think, it's good we hadn't got too far down the road, but it was like fine and easy to split. And we kind of agreed that. And so then I was doing it myself, and I realized like, I think the real upside of that was that I was suddenly like, oh, I've got no one to talk to about this. I'm fully by myself. I need to find other folks to get advice from and figure out how the fuck I do this if I don't have that one friend to like bounce ideas around with. So I started looking up all the different meetup groups for different tech events. And so in London at the time, there was this one that was like Burger Monday nights, and there was Silicon Drink About, and the like Hacker News events were happening. So I started just going to a lot of those. Started asking friends that I knew if they knew anyone that worked in tech, and just to like start having more conversations. And then I also got, so one of my friends who was at the marketing agency with me, he had left a year previously to start a startup. So I reached out to him, and he ended up becoming like one of my closest friends. And so just, people started sharing advice, like explaining product, explaining like how to think about product, like what product design was, like what engineering is, like back end to front end, and just starting to like understand a bit of the vocabulary around it. And then one of the guys that I met at the Burger Night Monday, he was an engineer, and he was like definitely experienced. I don't think he'd done YC, but he just like knew his shit about startups and had a really good blog. So I asked him for an advice session, and I was still talking about the like generalist product at this point, or thinking about it. And he's Austrian, and he was just like, "This is not going to work. This is fucked. You can't do this. Like, you're trying to do too many things. You're trying to think about like the lifestyle of like being single and the experience of being single, and you're trying to match people. You've got to just do one thing." And so after that conversation, I went home, and I was like down and out, and I like drank a bottle of wine and was like, all right, what should I be thinking about then here to like make this compelling and make it mean something?
Just want to interrupt. And you were working your full-time job while you were doing this. So
Yeah,
basically it's the wine drinking and the tech meetups that are happening after work.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
everything was after work in the evenings. And so then, I got really drunk, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, one, there's like an industry and space that I know a hell of a lot more about, which is the lesbian and queer side, because I'm spending my social life there. I use this product called Gaydar Girls, which is horrific. It's something that I care about. It seems crazy to me that like no one's done here, and it actually means something. It means something to me, and it will mean something to the space to do this and just do a dating app that's really focused on that. So that was my like drunk epiphany moment. And so kind of like almost in the next week, I was like rethinking everything. I was like, can I keep the name the same? Like, do I change what I'm doing? Like, what do I want to do with this whole thing? And so then probably over the next like couple of months, started to like realign and replan of like, right, this is actually what for me, like my drive and my purpose of what it is I wanted to look at. So, so then started doing it. And so at that point, what was I doing? Like,
So you decided to focus on that market that you knew, but were you what were you thinking of doing? Were you already thinking, okay, I want to build an app that does this? Or were you thinking I want to do events? Because I'm just curious, you had the idea for a business, and were you
yeah,
going product first, or were you going to test other kind of ways of doing it first?
I definitely had in my head that I wanted to make an app on a because I was reading so much about startups, I was reading all these books about how to do like customer development and how to like validate your idea. So I did like 100 different customer interviews, and I pretended to myself that I was looking to see if that was the right solution. Really, I wasn't actually listening to what they were saying properly. I was just like, I'm building an app. Like, I know that's what I'm going to do. But I think that's also because there were enough like market examples to know that it was validated by other businesses. It was like, clearly this works. There are straight ones. There are gay ones. Why the fuck isn't there one for women? And so I didn't care almost what people said, because I was like, it's so fucking obvious. And it meant that I actually missed a bunch of other signals that I think I could have learned from, because I was just so headstrong that like that was what I needed to do. So if I talk to other founders now, I'm always like, listen to the problem, like try and understand the problem the best way you can. I assume that it would still have ended up in the same place, but there were like interesting things that I probably could have learned at the time that I wasn't paying attention to.
Do you mind going into that? Because, by the way, Nasi, hi, he's I hope you won't mind me saying this, Nasi, London Business School student at the moment, and interested in entrepreneurship and doing something himself. And I know we've talked about technology a lot. And so I definitely also had the same thing. It's like, you have an idea and then you want to make an app. And then, even if you're listening to other people, what they're saying, you're like, yeah, app.
Yeah.
I'm also now like, okay, well, was that necessarily the right order? It's definitely a product that needed to exist. I'm not sure if it was the right order. So what are your learnings here?
I think like at number one, this is my number one to say as well is that like, although I can now look back and say, oh, I wasn't paying attention to the signals, the like ferocious like drive that I had that this was right was way more valuable than like opening up a bit of opportunity for that perspective. Like the fact that I was so headstrong this was right gave me so much forcing power. So I think it's like, it's not terrible if you do have that. There are so many upsides that come from that. But I think the signals that I missed, things of just like understanding the actual like dating patterns of women. I wasn't really listening to understand like what makes you say yes to a profile. Like, what are you trying to message? What's your emotions when you are sending that? How do you feel? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel insecure? Because I think that would have just helped when thinking about the product experience, understanding those like feelings underneath. And while I was listening to them, I had this belief that like women did want to have like empowered casual sex and have the opportunity to have hookups. And when I asked people about it, they were like, fuck yeah, on a Friday night, I want to look at a map of like where all the cool women are and be able to go there to be able to like make out with someone and hook up. And I was like, yes, it's exactly what I thought. But like, actually, if I've been asking the right questions, the reality was they love the idea of doing that, but rarely to never in their behavior do they actually do that. And so I wasn't asking just like, so I was like, oh, cool, you love it. And I wasn't like, cool, when was the last time you did it? Because then it'd been like, oh, like never. And it just would have like explained so much more to me. But I was like, yeah, great, they want that. They want this to happen. And so yeah, the kind of the actual experience and like the emotions and that like very like human research piece of it, I think would have been really helpful.
It's interesting that you say that because I think a lot of the people who, come to Tech for Non-Techies and are listening to this kind of thing, they tend to definitely be the way I used to be when I first started, was like, you're so insecure about the fact that you don't know about technology that you ignore everything else and that you basically over index on the tech and then actually forget the human aspect. And I mean, I know that's definitely put some spokes in my wheels. And what you seem to be saying, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but what you seem to be saying is understand the psychology and focus on that before you actually focus on technology. Is that right?
Yes, I think it's a combination of all of it. Like, even though I wasn't listening, the truth was there was like the market validation there. I could see these other products that were succeeding for other demographics. So like the logic just kind of made sense. Like the evidence was almost there. But I think the human, and to even have an idea in the first place, you've already jumped to an execution. Like you already see it. So it's really difficult to unwind that, especially if you're a first time founder. I think once you get onto your like second or third business, you realize how easy it is to not get attached to it because you see how much it changes. And so there just really isn't any point. And you also realize that you almost are always wrong about what you first think is right. There is a real artistry to like being able to talk to customers and really understand how they're feeling. And even now, I don't think I'm that great at it. Like I always give the excuse that our space is, has a lot of like psychology play in it because it's around your like love emotions. It's around your like insecurities. And so it's like hard to work. If you're doing like an enterprise SaaS software, you can probably ask someone like, why did you click on buy? And they can probably tell you there's like a little bit of psychology stuff going on there, but it's a much more like rational decision. Whereas ours is like so driven by emotions. You're really having to like get under the psychology there. So that's why I still don't think I'm great at it. I'm much rather running stuff through like data experiments now. But I think remembering the humanity and that it is ultimately people. Every time we do like a round of customer development, I'm always like, yes, oh, this is so good. Just like remembering that these are just people and there is real commonality into what they want to get out of the product and what their experience is of using the product right now. So a balance of all of it. It's the people and ideally when you have enough users, the data and being able to see like in bulk numbers what's working and what's not working and being able to do fast tests.
Oh, so now let's go back to the origin story because what I'm wondering is that there you are, you've got your Austrian tech advisor who's made you cry, but he's also really made you focus and essentially but made you focus on something that's now become a great success.
Yeah.
but you still don't know much about technology, and you are going to build this app. So what are literally the first tech things that you do? I remember that I was reading that you learned to code.
Yeah.
So yeah, could you talk us through literally kind of, I want
Yeah.
to up, what do I do then?
So at that point, there was a bunch of almost like seeds that I planted in different communities and spaces that was like connecting me with more tech people. I was still very certain that I needed to find a co-founder. So things that I was doing, I was going to all the events and meetups and like meeting people through that and trying to see if they would want to become a co-founder. I had started getting involved with Geek Girl Meetup, which was organized by one of my friends. She was living, I think she was in Sweden at that point. And so me and two other friends decided to set up like the London chapter of it and start operating these like monthly breakfasts. And that was a great way to like build network and start meeting other women that were working in tech. Um, uh, and then, but I still hadn't found, so also like, meanwhile from the stuff before, I'd been like saving a bunch of money. So I wasn't going out anymore. Like every weekend I was working on this or thinking about it or doing stuff like going to hackathons and things that again would just connect with more people. So had saved up, I think by that point I'd probably saved like 3 grand or 4 grand or something. I'd done some things at my agency. I'd like renegotiated to be on a contract. I think I knew that I wanted to get there, but also on a contract, you want more money. And so that upped my salary a bit. And then, and then I was looking for contractors to work on this. And so I was trying through all these meetups, everyone that I met, even if they didn't want to be a co-founder, I was like, how much is this going to cost? And, if you talk to agencies, they're like, oh, it's 30 grand or 40 grand. And then I'd like speak to an individual and it was like, it doesn't seem like it should be that much money. I don't really understand why this is coming out. And I just hated that I didn't understand what I was asking people to do. In my apartment, the building next door, I like looked down on the ground and there was like a new company that was going into that building. I was like, oh, wonder what it is. And it ended up being Decoded. And so I emailed them and was like, hey, I'm your neighbor. I'd looked up the courses and the courses were like, £1,000 or something for a day. So I was like, there's no way I can afford that. So I emailed them and said, look, I know I don't know you. You don't know me, but I'm your neighbor. If on any day someone drops out sick, I won't go to work that day. I will come in and I would love to do this coding course with you guys. And so I think like 2 weeks later, I got an email back from them. They were like, hey, someone pulled out. Do you want to come? And I was already at the office. I was like, fuck, I can't. And then but then we like chatted a bit. And then like 10 days later, it happened again. So I got to do a day with them, which was like my very first like learning to code stuff. And then I like definitely enjoyed it, was like, felt that I had started to like understand a little bit of the structure, but was like, I need to know a lot more. I need to be able to do more of this. So I then set up to General Assembly. It was I think it was their front end course, probably. Yeah, it was their front end web dev course, which I think was I think it was 3 months. And so it was like 2 classes a week and then like a bunch of homework that you'd do between it. So, and it was, GA was much cheaper. So I did that. And so then at the same time, I was still trying to like get like quotes and find out how much it cost to build this first idea of the product that I had. The guys that ended up building the very first version, I was in the pub with some uni friends and I was like, this is what I'm doing. I'm doing this dating app. I was like, I don't have anyone to do it. And someone that I'd gone to uni with was like, do you know I'm an engineer? I was like, no, I genuinely had no idea. Brilliant. Tell me, what do I need to do? How much does this cost? Do you know anyone? Can you build it? He couldn't, but he knew he had a couple of friends who, one was a front end, one was a back end. And he was like, they can like tag team and put something together for you.
We've lost
this split between front end and back end. Sorry. Oh, have I broken up? Have I come back?
Just temporarily lost you for a bit. So you had a front end and a back end, and they were from Bristol Uni connections.
Yes, exactly. And so I kind of had, and because of doing the course at the same time, I understood the difference between front end and back end and like what their responsibilities were and how I had to, in that course, they talked about like database structure and database schemes. And so I was like, okay, I get it. I get where I need to think about the profile properties because that relates to like what we're going to put in the table. So it helped me like brief it a little bit better for them. It's still like had a lot of flaws and problems, but it helped brief it better. And so they started building the first version.
Question: did you already have a prototype? Like, who made the prototype? Because somebody needs a prototype before you give it to developers, right?
I just put it as a bunch of flat screens. So I think also at the time, so this was like 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and things like InVision were around. No, do you know what I was using? I was using balsamic. So I used balsamic wireframes, and then I had like designs done for those screens.
So you taught yourself to make the designs?
Did I? No, who did I make those with? So I did the branding with one of the girls who was one of the designers at my agency.
Of course.
So we did it as a freelance project. Yeah.
That's the benefits of your background.
Yeah.
Design.
She did all the screens, but it was interesting because she was definitely like a graphic designer. So I think that was, some of the stuff in the first product. And for me, having to learn what is the difference between product design versus graphic design and how does that feel different as an experience?
Oh, I had no idea because when I first started out, I thought design was, like fashion design or graphic design. I didn't know that user experience design is actually about the intuition of where you put buttons. I didn't know that that was a thing. I mean, nobody comes out of the womb knowing that that's a thing. So
yeah, but also the design language of product is so different. Like even on the UI elements, like there is a language that works inside touchable technology that is almost polar opposite to graphic design. Like graphic design is like striking and stark and powerful to get cut through and stand out. And that's like the opposite of how you want a product to feel. It needs to feel like bubbly, bouncy, touchable, like playable. Like you really want to get it stuck in there. And you can tell there are some apps that are striking and beautiful that have had this more like kind of graphic like input on it, but it's not super nice to use. It doesn't make you happy to get stuck in there. And so I think that was like our first version was quite like that. Although I don't know, material design is like an interesting place that sits in the middle, or the Google Android language, because it's quite like graphic to me at times. But anyway,
that's interesting. You've literally just described a lot of the e-commerce, like high fashion apps, like
yes,
because they tend to be so focused on the editorial beauty that you actually can't use them. So
exactly, yeah, precisely.
Anyway,
and media publications are a really good example of that. Like when you look at them, you're like, this just doesn't like make sense digitally because they're used to making their whole language is this like.
Oh yeah, Condé Nast. Yeah, I know. They need our help. So then you've got these screens which are kind of made by a graphic designer, but that's all you've got and that's all you know at the time. And then you've got these two guys who are doing the back end and the front end, and you know how to brief them and you know how to kind of give them product specifications because you've done this GA course. Is that right?
Yeah. A bit. And I have to give them a lot of credit as well. They were really great at helping to teach me and ask the right questions in a way that wasn't always like, this is scope creep. It's going above and beyond. Like I think they knew the situation that I was in. This was their first kind of independent clients that they were taking on the side. So they were up for probably going a bit above and beyond. Like if it was an agency, and the really challenging thing about any first time founder going to an agency is that you really don't know how to spec a product and you are not going to spec it fully. So there is going to be scope creep, and an agency is already going to be too expensive for you. And then they're going to ask for another 20% on top of it when you all realize all the stuff that hasn't been thought through. So the guys were really flexible. They helped teach me a lot more as well. And so we had this first version that was being built, was getting ready. And as that was happening, I was doing a lot more. So I'd get up really early, do stuff before work, go to work on my lunch hour. I would jump out. And I was at this stage, I was applying for pitch competitions. I was really getting very stuck into the startup scene side of it. And evenings I'd go to the coding school, or I'd go to different meetups. So my whole life outside of work was consumed by it. And then as it looked like we were getting ready to submit to the App Store, and I had prototypes, was playing with it, the day that we submitted to the App Store was the day that I handed in my notice at my job, and was like, great, here we go. So I did that. It went to the App Store, it got approved, got published. And there was I was kind of well, launch day excitement and getting it ready. And then no one uses it. But I mean, meanwhile, I was thinking a lot about the marketing, and they had been doing marketing stuff in the background as well, preparing for launch day and how do I get profiles on there and how do I make it a good experience.
So what were you doing? I remember we talked about you going to events before, and I remember there was a story involving vodka shots.
Yeah. So before the app was launched, I did things that was all about just building an email list so that when it was live, I could tell people it was published, they should check it out. So I did things like that year at Pride. I went and took photographs of people. I put those photographs on the website. When I took the photograph, I gave them a card that said, here's where you can view the photos from. When they went there was like, enter your email to see the photos from Pride. And so they would enter that email. So I, probably got like 100 emails from something like that. I was doing a lot of like building relationships with people on Twitter, like finding people who had all the blogs. Like I started doing an email newsletter that was just around like the queer nightlife scene in London. So then when it launched and it was out, that's when I started doing the more like in-person, like experiential marketing. So I would go to nightclubs, if I was like mapping all the different spaces of like, where are the lesbians of London, basically. And I was very biased to like my own experience, and I loved like the queer nightlife scene. And so I would go to different club nights, and a bunch of them were like warehouse kind of like underground parties. So licensing was pretty liberal. And so I would buy a bottle of vodka at an agreed price from the bar. And then I would walk around the club, and I would give them a shot if they downloaded the app then and there and created a profile. So I'd see them do the full journey. And then I'd also get to see like any issues they were having or what didn't make sense or if they were like excited about it. So I did that for like a few months. I was probably starting to get press trying to get press at that point. And I ended up actually, so from Decoded, when I did the day with them, Catherine Parsons, who's the founder of there, I met her, got on really well with her. We'd stayed friends since then. And she had so much press about like Decoded, about the work that she was doing. I think after probably about like 5 or 6 months of doing Datch, I remember like asking her for an advice session, being like, how do I do this? Like, I've been trying to pitch journalists. And I did at General Assembly, I did a PR, a one-off PR class there. And I'd been pitching journalists, getting no response. Like no one wanted to write about it. And I had to talk with her, and I can't even, like, she was like, look, what you're doing is the right stuff. It makes sense. It sounds like you're doing the right things. She was like, just stick with it. It's going to like come good. And then literally like the next day or something, like one of the ones came through, and I was like, okay, whatever. This is just like all the stars aligned, and like it all came together at the right time. And then once I started getting press became like a good like user acquisition channel. And then
Facebook, right?
Sorry?
Cheaper than Facebook.
Cheaper than Facebook. And at the time I had no money, but I had time. So it was, I'd like do anything that like, worked well for that. By this point, I think I'd run out of money. I was like, and so when I first started, I'd saved up a bootstrap fund of about 10,000, I think. And so that was the money I'd saved before. I sold a bunch of things that I had. I'd like moved in with my dad for a little bit to save on a bit of rent. And then I won some money on the lottery, which was just, I won like £3,500. But it was like when you're trying to save 10, 3.5 is loads, made like a really big difference. So, I had 10. I think like 5 of that went to the 2 guys who were building that first version. And so then I was paying rent because I didn't have a job, and I was like, I'm about to run out of money. So then I started working in a pub, and so I'd work in the pub like on different shifts just to get enough money to like keep things ticking over.
And at that time, were the guys working? Were you analyzing the kind of usability and building another version? Because you have to pay people to do that. And I'm assuming things were a bit difficult.
We were, but what started to get more challenging was more that they didn't have the time to do the stuff that was needed. Like so also at this point, I think I've been applying for a lot of grants and like doing a lot of pitch competitions to win. And I won various different amounts of like £1,000 or like £2,000. There's little top ups that will come through that. So I think with the guys, what happened, I can't recall this perfectly, but I think like I wanted to do more. And I was like, guys, you need to become co-founders. Let's do this. Let's like do this together. And they were just like, don't want that. Like, it's not a product or like a space that we're super passionate about. And we've kind of got our own thing to do. So I think I was faced with that reality of like, they're not going to become co-founders. They can do little things here and there. So we'd do little projects. It would be like a few £100 for like a tiny update, something that was broken or a thing that I hadn't thought through of like, for example, this was actually partially intentional, but when we first built it, you couldn't close your account. So you'd have to just like delete the app, but the account would stay active because we needed profiles. So eventually I was like, we have to create a close account and we have to like link. Yeah. So I had then started looking for like, cool, who else am I going to get to do this? And I had found there was a guy that I had met at what's it called? The Google,
Google Campus in Shoreditch. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
So like Google Campus. And he was a Spanish guy who had a team of engineers in Spain, but was doing the like client development and getting clients in London because it was just cheaper to work with a Spanish team. I really liked him. I was like, great, you can do it for the price that like makes sense for me. So they took over the development of it. They actually rebuilt the whole thing from scratch in the end because you just any new engineering team, they want to own the code base and they hate working on other people's code. So it was ultimately for me, it was still about the money. And I was like, hey, if you can do it for the same money, that's fine. I was still doing more like, London senior stuff, but was more confident because I actually had something. I had a product. I was like talking about something legit. Um, and then I think the next stage of like development stuff for me was I used to go to the it's called the Mobile Academy Mondays. And I met a girl through there. I saw her coding and I was like, oh my God, it's a woman that's coding. And like she needs to come like work with me. And so I like made friends with her. She was a designer and she wanted to do, and she was a designer and did front end development, but she didn't know how to build iOS apps and she wanted to learn how to do it. And I was like, cool, do it with me. That's fine. Great. Just like come join me and be on my team. So she was like, yeah, cool.
And how did
And
you manage to pay her?
um, I just, I did pay her. Um, uh, it was through like, I was working at the pub, which gave me bits. So I probably was paying her like a few £100 here and there. So it wasn't full time. I was like, come work with me on like, almost like a project basis. Like, this is how much money I have.
Spanish people, and then you had this girl.
Her, and then I also had a girl who had joined, who was doing like community and like social media stuff, and she was doing it for free. And so she had just come back. She'd been working at Disney. She'd come back to the UK. I think I picked up her email through one of those like early things that she knew about the app starting. And she emailed me and was like, "Hey, I want to come do this with you. Like, I think it's really interesting. I want to come like work with you, and you don't have to pay me." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is bloody godsend." So it was like the three of us. So then when we were at the point where the Spanish guy's product was about to go live, uh, we had to do a database migration from the first like product into the new one. And the guys on the Spanish team like were basically saying they weren't going to do it. They were like, it just needs to be started from scratch because the migration is like complicated and you don't have budget for that. And I was like, look, it's not much, but I built up like 800 or like maybe it was 1,000 profiles or something by then. I was like, that really counts in this product and this experience. Like I need those people in there, and they wouldn't do it. And so Vez, who was the designer and front end person who was going to be learning iOS, her boyfriend was a back end developer, and she was like, "I'll ask Rock, he'll help out and he'll help us do this." And so this was all like the night before Pride. Like we were due to launch it at Pride, and Rock was doing the database migration that night so that we could like publish it and have those profiles in the new product and be able to talk about it. And it got to like 4 a.m. and he was like, "This is not going to work. Like there's problems with the front end. Like it's not displaying correctly. Like stuff is wrong." And I was like, "I don't fucking care. This is going out at Pride. It will be there." And so he always said afterwards, he was like, "You were so fucking mental about doing this." And he was like, "It was so crazy. That was exactly the kind of person that I wanted to work with. Like you were so dead set and passionate about doing it." And so in the end, Rock joined the team and he was my CTO for like 6 years. So it became like a really like long-term, relationship, and is definitely the closest thing to like a co-founder that I had through the company.
Yeah, the couple working with you together, like both of them. Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've been through a lot of ups and downs, like, and I'm still, neither of them are in the company anymore. But they're just, it's such an important part of my life and story, and we worked so long together. Vez stayed at the company for a bit, but then it didn't work out. Like her and I weren't working well together. So we had to like manage that between the three of us. There was a lot of like, unmentionable walls of stuff where Rock would say like, "Oh, I'm not talking to Vez about this. I don't know anything about it." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And so we'd kind of navigate it between the three of us, but it was generally fine. Like they're really cool. They were cool to work with and they like managed it really well. So yeah.
Cool. Interesting. So I'm just aware, does anybody have any questions? If you have questions, just write them in the chat box. Otherwise, we will continue because I'm having a grand old time. I'm really, you are so interesting. So then you've got this product and, it launches on Pride and you've got a CTO whom you found through. It's interesting how you were going to all these meetups and you were looking for this person and then they came, but in a completely kind of unexpected way.
So Rock, I actually met. the first time I met him even in person, so Bez and I had met at Mobile Mondays. Rock was part of a different startup team at the time that was in Wyra and in the first cohort that Wyra had ever done. And so they were having drinks one night and Bez was like, do you want to come for drinks? And you can meet Rock. And I was like, yeah, great. So met him and we chatted and that was kind of the first time I really learned about Wyra. So I then applied to join Wyra and to get into the next batch of people, which
I think they must have changed it now because they're very telecoms focused now.
yeah, and it was like 7 years ago. There was like, and it was very, very like different format. It's different to how most accelerators run. It was definitely like an interesting program. I think they learned what is valuable about what they can offer, and that's what the Telefonica like network has. So it makes sense to do that. But yeah, so once then Rock had done that like project as a favor, and then so he ended up leaving that team and then joining our team. But that only happened once I had got into Wyra. And so I then had the money to be able to actually like pay him a salary and pay Bez a salary and pay Emily, who was the community and support person, pay her and social person, paid her a salary. So when I started Wyra, it was just me sat at a desk. It was like all these other teams and it was literally just me on these like big tables. And then I think after like 3 weeks, there was then 4 of us who were working on it. And that's because we had the Wyra money in.
Cool. So then you are working on this product and do you have so you've got the lady, Wes, doing the front end and you've got her boyfriend who's doing the back end and
she actually didn't end up doing the front end in the end because she started doing iOS and it was just like, it was complicated and actually we needed a lot of design stuff. And she was just so fast at doing that because it was her like competency. We ended up getting a different iOS dev. I used to, I don't know where I even got them from, but like we had one guy who was like an intern basically, and he was a student who'd been studying engineering and he ended up working with us for like 3 or 4 months for free. And then we did things like my friend who I said had been at the marketing agency. I was like saying to him, I don't have an iOS end, I need someone. And he had someone on his team who was actually a back-end dev, but wanted to learn iOS and they didn't have work for him at the time. So he was like, why don't you just borrow him for like a month? So he came to work with us for a bit. And then like so many just like weird hustly ways of like trying to get people to work on it. And there just always managed to be someone. I met through another girl who I'd met who was a designer. Her roommate was an iOS dev. So he did a contract with us for a bit. And then in the end, Emily, who was our community person, when we were looking to hire an iOS person, she was like, I think my new roommate might be an iOS dev. He was also at university. So he was like 18 or 19 when he joined the team. And so he joined and he was our iOS eng for like a couple of years, I think, in the end.
Awesome. So actually, speaking of communities, we've got a question from Emmett, who first starts by saying good stuff. And actually, Nasi told us that this is very useful. So go us, I think go you, maybe. So the question from Emmett is that when you are right at the beginning and you've only got a small number of users, so it's not enough of a community, how do you stop them from disengaging and becoming inactive before the community grows? And I know that at Entity, we definitely had that problem. So we ended up, but for us, because it's professional stylists and users, we essentially could just be the stylists for a while. Where I don't know how you managed to do it. Were you just going on lots of dates?
I'll date everyone. I think with any kind of like marketplace interaction, it's always a bit of like fake it till you make it as much as you can. I think like it's always that great case study they always talk about. They made all the fake accounts. I didn't actually do that. The very first day that we launched, I made about 12 different profiles, which was just all my like high school friends, like school people I got to school with. So they weren't using the app, but it just looked like it wasn't completely empty.
So you didn't content. There's a technical term for it.
Yeah. So and then I think after that, like there's got to be something to look at to almost engage with, even if they're not going to get the messaging and the chat function like as quickly as you want them to. As long as there are profiles to look at, it will keep them coming back every now and then. And then I think really for like all businesses, it's just working out what comms channels do you have so that you as a company can keep them engaged in some way that they will give you another chance over time. But I think also you just come to terms with like your first 5,000 users are not going to remain users. Like they're going to come in and they're going to churn out just because they're not going to have a good experience. It's not a good product. But I think at the time I was just like, I've just got to keep pushing this harder and harder and harder. And the more people that come in, the faster I will get over that line to when there is a very baseline of a critical mass of people that can actually create an experience for each other. But I think, one upside of building mobile products is you have push permissions. And so even if as long as they haven't deleted the app, like even if they haven't used the app for like 1 week or 2 weeks, if they get a notification, they'll probably check it out and come out and see like what's been happening in the app. And hopefully stuff has changed in that time that they're like, oh, great, there's now loads more people for me to like or engage with or, figure out a different way to connect.
Well, thank you. So then can you tell us when you actually got to Y Combinator? Because I know that might be a jump, but I just want to make sure that we cover that because I know people are going to be interested.
Yeah. So I did. So at the end of Wyra, I raised £100,000. That was enough to like tide over the next period of time. We got our first office or worked out of my friend's office for a while, then got an office. And then I was trying to raise a seed round. And so I'd been trying to raise all across London, very little success from like angels, from funds, from anyone.
No. Yeah, it's a very conservative market here, especially if you're
Yeah.
making a consumer product. And consumer products for women in London is not the place.
Yeah. And so a friend who had like a friend of a friend had raised money from Alexis Ohanian from Reddit. And so I had asked him for an introduction to him. At the same time, I'd done a pitch in the US in San Francisco and would launch the app in San Francisco. And on that trip, like a bunch of people had offered me money just like off the bat from this pitch event. Like Dave McClure from 500 Startups was like, I'll write you a check for 75K. Like other people were like, I'll cut you a check for 50K. And I was just like, what the fuck is happening? Like in England, you're like begging to get anything. And here I'm not even asking. They're just offering
What
it to
was
me.
this event that you went to? Maybe we should all go instead of the flights.
I did one that was called Launch Festival, and then I did Lesbians Who Tech,
Mhm.
and then just met other people like through other British founders that were over here. So I was just having coffees. It was meant to be a research trip, but the momentum started, and I was like, right, I think if I raise, not only is it not going well in the UK, but like the US people want to give us money and they see the potential. I should focus here. A friend in London had raised money from Alexis. So I asked for the intro because I was like, Reddit is all about like community and community engagement, interaction. It makes a lot of sense. And so in the end, Alexis, his fund initialized, led our seed round.
Mhm.
And so I raised $1 million on that first seed round. A couple of months after we'd closed, Alexis sent me an email saying, hey, have you ever thought about applying to Y Combinator? And I was like, why the fuck would I do that? I just raised $1 million. Like, why would I go there? So I was like, no, thanks. And then a few weeks later, as I'd like sat on it, I was like, wait, number one, like he definitely knows his shit a lot more than I do. And if he's suggesting it, it's probably a good reason why. And so I kind of rethought it and I was like, yeah, that seems like a good idea. I should do that. So applied to YC, got through to the interview stage, but didn't get in the first time, applied again for the next batch and then got in the second time. So we did that in the summer of 2015. So by this point, all of that other stuff was all on Datch, the old product. But I'd started to change after we'd left Wyra. We'd started to build what was then going to become her because we'd learned a lot through the product experience. So we'd rebuilt her. Her launched for the first time in February 2015. And then we did YC in the summer of 2015. So we just had her as this like new product that was out. It was a new experience. It had new features. So it was actually a really great time to do Y Combinator. Like you're much better off going there when you've got something. You've got a team to be able to like execute and move really quickly. And you've got a starting point. It's not ideal if you're planning to build while you're in it because they're all about like growth and like rapid product iteration to like hit product market fit or try and get there. So if you're just doing that first build, it's hard to get there.
How exciting. So I just want to take a question from Nasi who's saying how much customer service work did you have to manage in the early days of the app being live?
Not too much. I think at that point, people kind of knew that we were really small. And I think maybe the greater risk was that they just didn't send us anything. They just stopped using it. So it maybe would have been better.
That's what I found.
Yeah. And then I think it's always like they're bad problems, but it's good problems. Like when it starts to become too much, it's because you are getting more users. And like when you start to get more and more challenging issues to tackle and support, it's because
you're alive. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So with Y Combinator, how much was her different from Dutch? Was it the same kind of proposition, but just a different user experience with different branding?
Yeah, it was different branding. things that I'd realized, like Datch was it felt very relevant to young people. And it was all of what I thought was going to be about like casual sex and like hookups. And that just didn't land. There wasn't enough of a market to do that. So then it was understanding like, well, what is it women do want to do? Like, and then talking to customers again to actually understand that. So her was much more, it was like the thesis was it was designed a lot more like Pinterest. And so your profiles were like these pin boards where you like added lots of pieces to it to explain who you were. It had the blog that ran in it and more like community driven stuff. So we had this like social component to it.
That's
So you like,
the groups as well, like interest groups.
yeah. So it didn't start with those. It's like there was one interest group, which was like, you're all here. Here's your one interest group stuff here. And then we refined it to be the communities after that. So it was definitely, it was just like an evolution of it. It's like the same thesis of like queer women don't have a place to meet each other. Let's make that place. But yeah, the execution of it was different. And I think we just understood more what we were looking out for, which was like, how do women want to meet each other? Like, or what is it is going to make them feel comfortable? How do we help them through this process? Because women just traditionally pretty terrible at doing that.
It's so interesting how you're talking, in this version of the product about learning and kind of growing with the customers, which is a big contrast to the beginning, which is like, I want to try this out, which I totally know at the beginning. It's like, I know what it's going to be. It's going to be amazing. It's going to do this. And then you're like, I don't really know what it's going to be. Maybe it's going to become something completely different. But
which I think is like,
product takes you somewhere, and the business, the money also takes you somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. And I think it's just really reflective there of like the different mentalities of the two worlds that I had been in. Like branding and brand consultancy is all about have one idea and execute it ruthlessly at all costs through all parts of your business. Tech is about like have one idea and then change it every day after that. Like change every feature, like be willing to change your proposition at the drop of a hat because like stuff isn't quite working and like learn as you evolve it. So I think her was almost like once I'd gone through that transition and understood like the way to approach business now in that field, what was the right way to do that?
And were your investors receptive to that evolution? Like, did they understand what was happening?
Yeah, at that point. So, did I raise? I guess I raised as part of explaining that her was coming. I think it was like we've got Datch, and by Datch we'd got to like 30,000 users, I think. So it had like got to a decent, it'd been validated, and it was like cool. Now I'm raising money to like really make her like her is where it's at and where it's going to be. I think they got that and like resonated with it.
Cool. So, what do you think about actually the tech skills that you needed? Because after all, this is Tech for Non-Techies, and I'm just curious. Do you think your coding course was a necessary component, or what should you have learned, or what do you recommend other people who want to go from a non-technical background to founding a tech-enabled business? What should they learn, do you think?
It definitely helped. I definitely recommend it. I think everyone should learn that just to understand some core components, even if you're speccing a product or asking for a change, to understand if it is like sorry, my cat is like going off one. If it's like a one line of code that you're changing, or if it's like a whole system or architecture structure. I think that
So you
something
just have like a small kind of course rather than let's go and do a full year thing.
I think people should continually be learning more and more about it. And I've definitely stopped learning more. I just rely on the people on my team to teach me about it. But actually, I have it today, actually. I now every 2 weeks have a session with my CTO where I'll just like ask him questions about me trying to understand, like, we use this different like CDN for image serving. And I was like, I actually don't understand what that is. Can you just explain to me what that is? And so I have actually got more back into trying to learn more stuff around our like setup. Because one loop that I went through was like when Rock was working on stuff, I was very control freaky at the time. I think because I'd like been thinking everyone was fleecing me and trying to like work out, were we really doing this the most effective way? So I think a mistake that I made was that I didn't give him and like engineering the freedom to like make their own decisions and feel that sense of ownership. I always like stuck myself into that decision-making mode. It meant that Rock had to like educate me about a lot of things because I insisted on having my opinion in stuff. I think that did end up helping me in the long run because I learned a lot through him. And that ended up being the foundation of a lot of our relationship, was he was often coaching me and teaching me a lot of tech stuff. So I definitely think that helped. And I definitely recommend that people do that. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I had exactly the same experience because I think at the beginning it is, you don't know what you don't know, and you also don't know
how to work with people who are doing something that's so important, that's taking up so much cash, and
Yeah.
it's like a black box. It's a it's a frightening experience. So like I would also put myself into processes where I really had no understanding, and like the mark of a good CTO or good partner is somebody who actually calmly explains to you why you're wrong and like what
Yeah.
what the situation is.
Yeah. And then over time, like as that like relationship built up between Rock and I, he would start to filter it by like he would make that filter judgment of like, here's something you do need to know about. Like, I need you to make this decision. And like we did a like whole rebuild when we did her. So he was choosing what language to build it in. And he was like, I think you need to be part of this decision because ultimately, if I'm not here in the future or it's going to affect our hiring capabilities, like here are the languages that I'm thinking about, here are the differences between them. Like, this is the kind of decision you should be involved with. What you shouldn't be involved with is like how I'm planning to like architect this because you don't understand the difference that it makes or what the different options are. And it would just take too long for you to learn that amount of stuff. So it's this fine balance of like learning what you should let go of and trust people because you trust their decision making ability that they do make that decision for you. But then hopefully being able to ask questions to learn about it, learn what they did choose, why that was right. And then which decisions you should have an active say in because it affects the business and the growth of the business and what will happen in the business down the line.
So are there any particular books or YouTube channels or resources that you found or find useful?
I think all the YC stuff is great. And it's more on like the business side of it, not necessarily for the engineering side. Um, uh, but I think that they like Paul Graham's content, like YC has a startup school, which now has so much
That's a
content.
YouTube channel. Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um, uh, yeah. And I used to do Code Academy stuff. Like, I don't know if they're still good. I did the Stanford course that was online.
gone now. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If we talk about the same one, it was CS 101.
Yeah.
Did you have to change a square from like black to blue?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That took me ages.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they've taken, maybe it's gone back online. Now, that's interesting. I found that learning product management has been really helpful. And that's not something that I really knew was a job before I started working in tech. Because why would you? So I found product management and
Yeah.
understanding user experience, where I think as a non-technical person,
Mm,
the easiest things to understand and access, because I found that, taking a really long coding course, it can be such an investment of time that a lot of the time you don't have the time. Um, cool. So, anything else that you want to add for
yeah.
non-technical people that are thinking? I think, I'm seeing a lot of people who are working on their side hustles. Um, I'm seeing a lot of people who are working on their side hustles during isolation, and I think they're thinking of starting their web-based businesses. So what advice would you have to them?
I think kind of related even just to what you said, which is just like, just keep learning. Like, there are so many resources and stuff online. There are so many courses, blog posts, like schools, online schools, one-off courses. There's so much that you can do. Just keep learning. Like, don't expect to learn it all in one go. It's incremental. You will build a knowledge base. Everything you learn when you start, you're going to have to relearn again in like 5 or 6 months because it will actually have context and will mean something. But it's everything is available. I believe everything is available. It just takes time and commitment to actually, and like a lot of like hustle to get to a place where you get to turn it into something and it gets to mean something. But it only starts if you're going to invest the time and the effort to make it happen.
Well, you're a great example of proper hustle. So, let's wrap up here. Thank you so much for this. This has been really, really awesome, hugely energizing part of my day. And yeah, your cat's looking very energized too.
I don't know what's happened to her. She's like, somebody just says, like,
She wants to code little black squares too. Well, thank you so much, and have a fantastic day. And thank you for the questions, everybody.
it was great chatting to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.